They laughed when a black millionaire with 3 months to live adopted 5 girls from the streets. But their brilliance smashed prejudice. Alone against a cruel world, she sparked a revolution that stunned everyone. Evelyn Carter stood behind her glass desk, staring at the unopened medical report, its weight heavier than the Chicago skyline glowing beyond her 50th floor penthouse office. At 40, she was a black woman who'd built an empire from nothing. Carter Properties owned skyscrapers across 10 states, her wealth a shield against a world that once called her nobody. But the words inside that envelope tore her world apart. 3 months, she whispered, her voice cracking like ice. She poured a glass of 30-year-old Bordeaux, the red liquid catching the dim light. She sipped, but it tasted like dust, empty as her future. Her mind slipped back to a tiny Detroit apartment, her mother's hands rough from scrubbing floors, her back bent from long nights cleaning houses. Evelyn, just a girl, heard classmates sneer, "Go back to Africa," their words cutting deep. She'd sworn never to be small again, piling up money and shutting out the world. Every deal she closed, every tower she raised, was a wall against those old hurts. But now, those walls trapped her. Her penthouse, with its marble floors and crystal lamps, felt like a grave. She had no one. No family, no friends, no one to mourn her. The thought burned, sharper than the pain twisting her side. That evening, she put on a navy gown and went to a charity gala at the Waldorf's Grand Ballroom, her strength hiding the exhaustion in her eyes. Chicago's rich folks buzzed around her, their smiles as fake as their diamonds. Victor Grayson, her white rival and head of Grayson Properties, leaned in close, his voice sharp with scorn. "Heard you're on your way out, Evelyn. A black woman in real estate? Always a fluke." His words hit like a slap, but Evelyn clenched her jaw, her eyes cold as steel. She wouldn't let him see her flinch. Whispers followed her, cruel and cold. "She's finished," a banker muttered, sipping champagne. "Her company's ours for the taking." A woman in pearls added, "She never belonged here." Evelyn stood tall, but each word brought back those Detroit taunts, the pain as raw as ever. She left early, her chest tight with anger and grief. Her driver, James, a quiet man who'd worked for her for years, steered the limousine through the city's bright streets, but Evelyn stopped him. "Take the alley off Lake Street," she said, ignoring his worried glance. The limo turned into a narrow, dark path, its headlights sweeping over broken windows and piles of trash. Then she saw them, 5 girls, huddled under cardboard and torn newspapers, their faces lit by a flickering street lamp. The oldest, about 15, stood like a guard, her eyes hard with distrust. The youngest, maybe 8, shivered in a thin, patched jacket, her breath puffing in the November cold. Their stares, tough from years of surviving, met Evelyn's through the tinted window. A memory flashed. Evelyn at their age, hungry, cold, ignored by the world. Her heart stirred, a feeling she hadn't known in years. She stepped out, her heels clicking on the cracked pavement, the chill biting her skin. James called after her, "Miss Carter, this ain't safe." She waved him off, moving closer. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said, her voice soft but steady. The oldest girl stepped forward, blocking the others, her face full of suspicion. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone sharp. But the youngest looked up, her wide eyes catching Evelyn's, creating a quiet connection. "It's freezing out here," Evelyn said. "I got a place nearby. Warm beds, hot food, just for tonight, no strings." The girls traded looks, their silence heavy with doubt. The youngest gave a small nod, her eyes still locked on Evelyn's. The others followed, their steps slow but steady, like they were walking into the unknown. Evelyn watched them climb into the limo, their thin frames swallowed by the leather seats. Jamalyn, the oldest, sat stiffly, her arms crossed, watching Evelyn like a hawk. Chloe, the youngest, curled up next to her, her small hands clutching her jacket. Maya and Mila, the 13-year-old twins, sat close, their eyes darting between the windows and Evelyn. Leela, 11, held her sketchbook tight, her fingers smudged with charcoal. The ride was quiet. the city's lights flashing past. But Evelyn felt a strange pull, a mix of fear and hope. She didn't know why she was doing this, but something in those girls' eyes, fierce, unbroken, reminded her of herself. Back at the penthouse, Evelyn showed them the kitchen, stocked with food, and the guest rooms, with soft beds and clean sheets. "Eat what you want, sleep where you want," she said, her voice tired but kind. Chloe's quiet, "Thank you," was the only sound, a small light in the heavy silence. Evelyn left them to settle in, her mind racing. She didn't know what she was starting, but for the first time in weeks, the pain in her side felt a little duller. She sat at her desk, the medical report still unopened, and stared out at the skyline. Those girls, like her, had been cast aside. Maybe she could give them what no one had given her. A chance. The next morning, Evelyn woke to a mess. A crystal lamp lay shattered on the floor, crumbs dusted the marble. Her temper flared, but she held it back, remembering their wary eyes. She knew what it was like to feel out of place, to expect a trick. She cleaned up herself, her hands shaking from weakness, and decided then she wouldn't just give them a night, she'd give them a home. She called Marcus, her lawyer, and told him to start the adoption papers. His voice crackled through the phone, shocked. "Evelyn, you're sick. You sure about this?" She cut him off. "I've never been surer." The girls, hearing her on the phone, paused in the kitchen, their spoons frozen in bowls of cereal. Jamalin's eyes narrowed, like she didn't trust it. Chloe looked up, her face soft but curious. Maya and Mila exchanged a glance, their twin bond speaking without words. Lila clutched her sketchbook, her pencil hovering over a half-drawn face. Evelyn hung up, meeting their gazes. "You don't have to stay," she said. "But if you do, you're not guests. You're family." The word hung in the air, strange and heavy, but it felt right. Janelyn stood tall, her arms crossed as the girls ate breakfast in Evelyn's penthouse, the marble counters shining under the morning light. At 15, she was their protector, her eyes always watching for trouble. Chloe, 8, sat close, her small hands wrapped around a mug of hot cocoa, her face still wary. Maya and Mila, the 13-year-old twins, shared a plate of toast, their sharp gazes flicking to Evelyn. Lila, 11, sketched in her worn book, her pencil scratching softly. Evelyn watched them, caught between annoyance and something softer. "There's more food in the pantry," she said, pointing. Chloe's quiet, "Thank you, ma'am," felt like a warm breeze, easing Evelyn's tension. But trouble came fast. By noon, a crystal lamp was smashed, crumbs scattered across the floor. Evelyn's voice sharpened. "This isn't a playground," she snapped. Jamalin smirked, leaning back. "We didn't beg to come here." Evelyn started to argue, but Chloe's guilty eyes, wide with shame, stopped her. She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Just clean it up," she said, softer now. The girls moved quickly, their steps silent like they expected a trap. Evelyn watched, her heart heavy. She knew that fear, that sense of not belonging, from her own childhood. Marcus, her lawyer for 10 years, arrived, his gray suit neat but his face tight with worry. A black man who'd climbed Chicago's legal world, he'd helped Evelyn win a lawsuit years ago against a bank that refused her loan because of her race. Now, he looked at her like she was crazy. "Adopting them, Evelyn? You're dying. The board's gonna say you're throwing away your legacy." His voice was heavy, shaped by their shared fight against prejudice. Evelyn's eyes flashed, her voice hard as iron. "File the papers, Marcus. I've never cared what they think." He shook his head, but a small nod showed his respect. "You're stubborn as hell," he said, glancing at the girls, like he saw a spark in them he couldn't name. News of Evelyn's plans spread like wildfire, and Victor Grayson pounced. At a private club, he sneered to a reporter, "Street trash in Carter's penthouse? She's lost her mind." His words cut deep, and the girls felt the sting. That afternoon, they went with Evelyn's housekeeper to a small store on Wacker Drive, grabbing snacks. Shoppers stared, their whispers sharp. "Those black kids? Just after her money." Janelyn froze, her fists clenched, her face hot with embarrassment. Keep moving, she told Chloe, her voice tight. Maya glared at the ground, muttering, they're all the same. Mila bit her lip, her eyes wet but angry. Lila scribbled in her sketchbook, drawing a crowd with blank faces, her pencil shaking. Chloe held her bag of chips, her voice small. Why do they hate us? The girls returned to the penthouse, their heads low. In their shared room, Jamalyn gathered them, her voice low but fierce. They don't know us. We've survived worse than their words. Chloe nodded, clutching her chips. Maya and Mila sat closer, their twin bond a quiet strength. Lila showed them her sketch, the crowd's faces now with eyes like theirs, tough, unbroken. We're together, Lila said, her voice soft but sure. The moment bound them, their sisterhood a shield against the world's hate. But then came a moment of kindness. Mrs. Lena, a retired black schoolteacher from Evelyn's building, knocked on the penthouse door, holding a tray of warm oatmeal cookies. Her gray hair glowed in the hallway light, her smile soft. These are for you girls, she said, her voice gentle. My daughter, gone 3 years, was like you, strong but judged for her skin. She'd have loved you. Her words came from loss, a mother's love reaching out. The girls stood still, not used to this warmth. Chloe took a cookie, her shy thank you barely a whisper. Jamalyn nodded slowly, her guard easing. Maya took a bite, her eyes softening. Mila smiled, passing a cookie to Lila. Lila sketched Lena's face, her lines gentle now. Evelyn met Lena's gaze, a quiet bond forming. You're doing right by them, Lena said, leaving. The fight got worse. Grayson's allies on the Carter Properties Board sent angry emails, demanding an emergency meeting. Your health's failing, and your judgment's gone, one wrote. Step down, or we'll force you out. Evelyn read the messages, her oxygen tank humming beside her. The girls, watching from the hallway, saw her hands shake, her strength slipping. Jamalyn turned to the others, her voice low. They're trying to break her. Chloe gripped Lila's hand, her eyes wide with worry. She's like us, Lila said, her voice fierce. Nobody ever believed in her either. Evelyn sat alone that night, the penthouse quiet, except for her oxygen tank's hum. She thought of her mother, who'd died working for Evelyn's future. She thought of the girls, their tough eyes hiding the same hunger she'd once had. She opened the medical report, the words blurring through tears. 3 months. But those girls could be her legacy, not her skyscrapers. She called Marcus again. Make the adoption airtight, she said. I'm not letting them take these girls away. The girls, awake in their room, heard her voice through the walls. Jamalyn sat up, her face thoughtful. She's fighting for us, she whispered. Chloe hugged her knees, her eyes bright. Maybe she's not like the others. Maya and Mila nodded, their twin bond strong. Lila drew Evelyn's face, her pencil tracing a determined jaw. The girls didn't know what was coming, but they felt a flicker of trust. Jamalyn sat stiff in the courtroom, her fists clenched as Grayson's lawyer, a white man in a crisp suit, tore into Evelyn. She's dying, unfit to parent, he said, his voice sharp as a blade. These girls are a stunt, dragged into her mess. The words hit like stones, each one echoing the taunts they'd heard on the streets. Jamalyn bit her lip, her eyes fixed on the judge. Chloe, beside her, clutched her hand, her small voice whispering, They're wrong, right? Maya and Mila, the twins, sat straight, their faces blank but their eyes burning. Lila hugged her sketchbook, her pencil frozen over a drawing of Evelyn's tired face. The social worker's question came next, cold and pointed. Are you here for her money, Jamalyn? She wanted to shout, but Evelyn's calm gaze held her still. Outside, the hallway buzzed with Grayson's allies. A board member, his gold watch glinting, sneered, They're leeches, just trash. Chloe overheard, her lip trembling, but she tugged Jamalyn's sleeve, her voice soft. We're not leeches, are we? Jamalyn hugged her, whispering, Never. Maya muttered, They're all the same, her voice low with hurt. Mila, usually quiet, snapped, They don't know us, her fingers twisting a loose thread on her jacket. Lila scribbled harder, her sketch now a crowd with blank, judging faces. The taunts brought back old wounds. Nobody, worthless, Nothing. Back at the penthouse, Evelyn's health was fading. She'd collapsed at a board meeting, her oxygen tank now a constant hum. The girls saw her struggle, her hands shaking as she held a chipped mug with a faded rose, a relic from her mother's Detroit days. One night, Chloe slipped into Evelyn's study, finding her hunched over medical journals, her face pale under a brass desk lamp. "You're fighting, aren't you?" Chloe asked, her voice small but clear. Evelyn looked up, her eyes softening. "Always have, kid. For me, for you." Chloe's words struck deep, a spark in Evelyn's darkness. She'd fought banks that denied her loans, rivals like Grayson who called her a fluke for being black. Now, she was fighting for these girls, her daughters. But the board's pressure surged, their emails piling up like bricks. Marcus, her lawyer, called late, his voice heavy. "Grayson's planning a takeover, Evelyn. He's got shareholders like Callahan buying votes to push you out." Damalyn, lingering in the hallway, caught every word. Her heart raced, the old fear of losing everything rising. Shelters, alleys, hope. But Evelyn was different, not like the adults who'd let them down. In their shared bedroom, Damalyn gathered the girls, her voice low but fierce. "She's fighting for us. Even when she's sick, we fight for her." Maya hesitated, her voice shaky. "We're just kids. Kids who've survived worse," Damalyn snapped, her eyes blazing. Chloe nodded, her fear turning to resolve. Mila spoke up, her voice firm. "She gave us a home. I'm not letting them take it." Lila opened her sketchbook, showing Evelyn's face, strong but worn. "She's like us," Lila said, her voice soft. Nobody believed in her either. The girls stared at the sketch, their bond tightening. They huddled in their room, their voices urgent. Jamalyn pulled out a notebook, jotting ideas from Evelyn's files she'd sneaked a look at. "Grayson's got Callahan on his side. If we find dirt on him, we help Evelyn." Maya and Mila nodded, their twin minds clicking. "We can check her laptop," Maya said. "She left it open once." Lila sketched a logo for Evelyn's new foundation, a tree with deep roots. "This could show everyone she's not done," she said. Chloe, thinking of her mom's cancer, dug into Evelyn's journals, her small hands marking pages with sticky notes. "Maybe there's a treatment," she whispered, her eyes bright with hope. Each girl felt the fight differently. Jamalyn's anger pushed her to act. Chloe's fear softened into trust. Maya's doubt hardened into focus. Mila's silence hid fierce loyalty. Lila's sketches gave their pain a voice. Marcus came by the next day, his face less grim. "I found proof Grayson bribed Callahan," he said, holding a folder of emails. "It's not enough yet, but we're close." Evelyn nodded, her voice steady despite her weakness. "Keep digging." The girls, listening from the kitchen, exchanged looks. Jamalyn's mind raced. She'd seen Callahan's name in Evelyn's files, tied to a shady deal. She'd find a way to help. Evelyn noticed the girls' quiet focus, their glances at her oxygen tank, their whispered plans. One evening, she found Chloe asleep at her desk, a medical journal open, sticky notes scattered. Evelyn's eyes stung. She'd been alone so long, but now she had them. She tucked a blanket over Chloe, her hands steady for the first time in weeks. The girl's fight wasn't just for her company, it was for her life. The turning point came. Evelyn wasn't alone, and neither were the girls. Their decision to fight, born from shared hurt, lit a fire no board or rival could put out. The girls kept working, their plans growing. Jamalyn stayed up late, reading Evelyn's files, her eyes heavy but sharp. Maya and Mila pored over the laptop, their fingers quick. Lila's tree logo took shape, its branches bold. Chloe marked another journal page, her hope growing. Evelyn saw their effort, their care, and felt a strength she thought she'd lost. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for them, and they were fighting back. Evelyn stood at the Carter Properties Investors Gala, the ballroom sparkling with chandeliers and champagne glasses. Her oxygen tube tucked under a navy blazer. The crowd's whispers felt like needles, their eyes flicking to her cane, then away. Victor Grayson took the stage, his smile cold as ice. Evelyn's charity case? Those street girls? Shows she's unfit to lead, he said, his voice thick with scorn. Carter Properties needs a steady hand, not a dying dreamer. Some investors nodded, their faces smug, their hands tight on their glasses. Evelyn gripped her cane, her eyes scanning the girls in the wings, their faces set with fire. Jamelin stepped forward, her chin high, her worn sneakers quiet on the polished floor. "I taught myself coding from library books," she said, her voice clear as she plugged a laptop into the projector. A real estate app flashed on the screen, its clean design streamlining property analytics, a goal Carter Properties had chased for years. "This cuts costs by 20%, Jamelin said, her eyes daring the crowd to doubt her. Investors leaned forward, their murmurs growing. Maya and Mila came next, standing side by side, their voices blending like a single beat. "We built a logistics model," Maya said, clicking to a chart. "It optimizes building operations, saving millions." Mila added, "We tested it on Evelyn's smallest property. It works." Lila followed, her sketchbook open, her hands steady despite the crowd's stares. "This is for Evelyn's new foundation," she said, holding up a logo of a tree, its roots deep, its branches wide. "It's for kids like us who need a chance." Her voice shook but held, her eyes bright with pride. Chloe, the youngest, stepped up last, her small frame straight. "Ms. Evelyn gave us a home," she said, her words booming loud. "We're giving her a future." She held up a printed medical article, marked with her careful notes. "This treatment could help her. I found it because she believed in me." The crowd boomed loud, applause shaking the room. Grayson's smirk vanished, his face turning pale as investors swarmed the girls, firing questions. Evelyn rose, her cane firm, her voice cutting through the noise. "These are my daughters," she declared, silencing the room. Gasps echoed, but the girls stood tall, their faces glowing. Evelyn's faith in them, her hidden shadow, flipped the power. She wasn't a fading shadow. She was a visionary, her daughters the future of her empire. Grayson tried to speak, his voice cracking. "This is nonsense," an investor cut him off, his tone sharp. "Your takeover's dead, Victor. These girls just saved Carter Properties." Marcus stepped forward, holding his folder. "And we've got proof you bribed Callahan," he said, his voice calm but deadly. The crowd turned on Grayson, their whispers turning to jeers. "Bribed?" A woman in pearls hissed, her eyes narrowing. "He's finished," a man in a tux muttered, shaking his head. Grayson's face twisted, his head low as he backed off the stage, his allies slipping away, their faces red with shame. Evelyn met Marcus's gaze, a quiet nod passing between them. He'd helped her win a lawsuit against a racist bank years ago, and now he saw her vision. The girls gathered around Evelyn, their hands brushing hers. Jamalian's app sparked investor offers, executives scribbling notes. Maya and Mila's chart, pinned to the gala's welcome board, drew praise. Lila's tree logo, printed on banners, caught every eye. Chloe's article, tucked in Evelyn's pocket, felt like a lifeline. The gala, meant to crush Evelyn, became her triumph. She looked at the girls, her heart full. They'd faced the same hate she had, called trash, judged for their skin, but they'd turned it into power. Evelyn spoke to the crowd, her voice softer now. "I was alone once like these girls, but family is trust, not blood. They're my legacy, and they're just starting." The investors clapped again, some wiping tears. Lena, watching from the back, approached the girls, her smile warm. "You're stronger than my daughter was," she said, her voice thick with pride, her eyes misty from loss. Grayson's defeat was complete, his name ruined, his head bowed as he left, the crowd's jeers following him. The girls' brilliance didn't just save Evelyn's company. It shattered the prejudice that tried to break them. Evelyn sat with the girls after, the ballroom emptying. Jamalin showed her the app's code, her fingers quick. Maya and Mila sketched new plans, their pencils scratching. Lila added colors to her logo, her smile shy. Chloe pointed to a line in her article, her eyes bright. Evelyn's oxygen tank hummed, but her breathing felt lighter. She'd been ready to die, but these girls gave her a reason to live. She hugged them, her arms weak but warm, and felt like she'd won more than a company, a family. Evelyn stood by her penthouse window, the Chicago skyline twinkling like a vow, her oxygen tank's soft hum a fading echo of her battle. The gala's triumph still lingered, but Grayson's takeover bid hung heavy, a shadow refusing to fade. Shareholders, awed by the girl's brilliance, flooded her inbox with pledges, their words a stark turn from the board's earlier scorn. Marcus burst through the door, his suit rumpled, a grin breaking his usual frown. "Grayson's done, Evelyn. The board's voting to kill his takeover. Your daughters made this happen." Evelyn's lips curved, but her eyes stayed sharp. She'd clawed through too many fights to trust victory so easily. Downstairs, the girls gathered in the living room, their voices a tangle of hope and nerves. Jo Malin sat on the floor, her laptop glowing, her fingers flying as she tracked her app's downloads. "It's climbing. Investors love it," she said, her voice bright but wary. Maya and Mila, perched on the couch, pored over their logistics chart, their pencils scratching in sync. Lila pinned her tree logo sketch to a corkboard, her fingers smudged with charcoal. Chloe, clutching a science textbook, read about cancer trials, her small face fierce with focus. Bagala whispers stung. Some investors had called their work cute, a jab at their youth and skin. Jamalin's jaw clenched. "They still think we're nothing," she muttered. Chloe looked up, her eyes wide. "We're not, right?" Maya's voice trembled. "Are we enough?" Mila, usually quiet, snapped, "We're more than enough." The adoption hearing's final ruling came that afternoon. In a quiet courtroom, the judge, a gray-haired woman with a warm gaze, signed the papers. "You're Carter's now," she said, her voice steady. Chloe gasped, then ran to Evelyn, her arms wrapping tight around her. Jamalin hesitated, her defiance melting, and joined, her shoulder brushing Chloe's. Maya paused, her eyes wet, then stepped in, whispering, "This is home." Mila followed, her fingers twisting a braid, her voice low. "We're staying." Lila, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, smiled shyly, her fingers tracing its worn cover. Evelyn's heart swelled, her oxygen tube barely noticeable. She'd given them a name, but they'd given her a reason to live. Evelyn's health, fragile but stubborn, showed signs of hope. Chloe's research, sparked by her late mother's cancer battle, led Evelyn to an experimental treatment at Northwestern Memorial. The doctor, a black woman with a steady gaze, studied Chloe's notes, her glasses slipping. "This kid's a prodigy," she said, her voice thick with respect. Tests showed a 40% drop in cancer markers, a miracle carved from a child's determination. Evelyn gripped Chloe's hand, her voice rough. "You're saving me, kid." Chloe's eyes glowed, her hope turning to pride. Mila, watching, spoke softly, her braid still in her fingers. "We're all saving her." Maya nodded, her wet eyes clearing, her voice firm. "She's ours now." Grayson's fall was swift and brutal. Marcus uncovered more evidence, emails proving he'd bribed 2 board members, their names tied to shady contracts. The Chicago Tribune blared it across the front page. Grayson Properties CEO faces fraud charges. His stock plummeted, his elite allies scattering. At a board meeting, a shareholder, once Grayson's golf buddy, shook his head. "You played dirty, Victor. You're done." Grayson's face reddened, his voice a hiss. "You'll regret this." But the room ignored him, their eyes on Evelyn. A board member, her pearls glinting, nodded. "You've earned this, Carter." Reporters outside swarmed, their headlines praising Evelyn's vision and burying Grayson's name in shame. Under Evelyn's guidance, the girls thrived. Jamalin's app went live, boosting Carter Properties' profits by 15%, its sleek design pulling clients from New York to LA. Maya and Mila's logistics model cut operating costs, their charts taped in every Carter office. their twin voices briefing staff with confidence. Lila's tree logo launched the Carter Foundation's national campaign, its bold lines on billboards funding scholarships for kids like them. Chloe, enrolled in a gifted science program, dreamed of curing cancer, her textbook littered with sticky notes. Evelyn watched, her isolation gone, replaced by purpose. She'd built skyscrapers, but these girls were her true legacy. At a press conference in the Waldorf's ballroom, Evelyn stood with the girls, her navy blazer crisp despite her cane. Cameras flashed as she spoke. "These are my daughters, and they've shown what respect can do." Jamalin's app demo played on a screen, Maya and Mila's charts stacked beside it, Lila's logo on banners. Chloe's research cited in a medical journal. The crowd cheered, their applause drowning out past doubt. Marcus, once skeptical, leaned close. "You saw their strength when I couldn't," he said, recalling their joint fight against a racist bank a decade ago. Lena, now teaching art to the girls, beamed from the front row. "They're changing everything," she said, her eyes wet, her lost daughter's memory alive in their fire. Each girl felt the victory differently. Jamalin's defiance turned to quiet pride as she saw her app's impact. Chloe's hope flared into confidence as her research saved Evelyn. Maya's doubt became strength as she spoke for her charts. Mila's silence hid fierce joy as she claimed her place. Lila's sketches carried her dreams, her logo a symbol of hope. The lesson hit hard. Kindness and respect crush prejudice. Evelyn hugged them, their embrace a shield against the world's sneers. She'd faced death alone, but now she lived for them. Hope sparked at the gala, burned into pride, their family a testament to trust over blood. A year later, Evelyn walked into a tech lab in Chicago's South Side, her oxygen tank gone, her steps steady at 41. The Carter Foundation had transformed the city's poorest corners, its labs buzzing with kids coding on new laptops. Evelyn's cancer was in full remission, her doctors naming the treatment the Carter Protocol after Chloe's research. The girls, now thriving, led the charge, their faces on magazine covers, their story a beacon for the forgotten. Jamelin, 16, stood in a glass-walled conference room, her app now used by real estate firms in 20 states. She adjusted her headset, pitching updates to executives, her voice calm but fierce. "This isn't just code, it's opportunity," she said, her eyes sharp. The room clapped, no trace of the gala's cute jabs. Maya and Mila, 14, ran workshops in the Foundation's labs, teaching logistics to teens, their digital charts saving Carter Properties millions. Lila, 12, saw her artwork on school walls, her tree logo sparking murals in 10 cities, each one funding art programs. Chloe, 9, spoke at a medical conference, her research launching clinical trials, her small hands gripping a microphone as doctors nodded in awe. The elite who'd mocked them now begged for their expertise. A former Grayson ally, his tie loose, approached Jamalin at a tech expo. "We underestimated you," he said, his voice low. Jamalin's smile was cold. "Most do." Society shifted. Prejudice, once a steel wall, crumbled as Chicago's elite invited the girls to panels, their apologies late but real. A local paper ran a feature, "Carter's Daughters Teach Us All," praising their resilience and shaming past ignorance. Evelyn's empire grew, not just in wealth but in impact, reshaping Chicago's social fabric. The Foundation's scholarships lifted thousands, its labs turning street kids into coders, artists, scientists. Evelyn stood at a ribbon cutting for a new lab, the girls beside her, their faces bright. Lena, now teaching art to Foundation kids, handed Chloe a plaque for her research, her voice thick. "You're my daughter's legacy too," she said, her hands trembling. Marcus, in the crowd, nodded at Evelyn. "You built more than buildings," he said, his eyes soft, recalling their bank lawsuit win a decade ago. The girls, once invisible, were now icons, their story a light for the marginalized. A reporter asked Evelyn, "What's next?" She smiled, her arm around Chloe. "We keep fighting, for respect for everyone." The crowd roared. their cheers echoing the gala's triumph. Evelyn's journey from a dying tycoon to a family's heart proved trust builds bonds stronger than blood. The girls' brilliance, once doubted, rewrote their city's soul. Doubt, heavy in their hearts, turned to unshakable belief. Their impact a testament to kindness. Society learned prejudice thrives in ignorance, but respect changes everything. The world saw them now not as street trash, but as change makers. This story isn't just theirs. It's yours. Share your fight against bias in the comments. How have you stood for dignity? Like, comment, and subscribe to join us. Together, we can end discrimination and build a world where every voice counts.